Hi, I'm Jay Polaki, and this is the HRBytes podcast, where HR practitioners share their think globally and act locally digital HR agenda. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the HRBytes podcast and video series. We are present on all your favorite channels as well as YouTube. Our guest today is Maggie Ruvoldt. Maggie, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to be here and excited for our conversation.
Well, I'm super enthused by the work you're doing with AI, so I'm going to jump right in. How are you approaching this entire revolution that's happening in our HR function today when it comes to automation and AI?
Love the question. And this is such a thrilling time to be in HR and to be a technology focused person. My first approach has been really learning the basics, not just the opportunities in AI, but what is a large language model and what are the different things? What's generative AI versus other things? And then using it and encouraging my team to use it in really simple ways, like you're planning a vacation, you know, ask ChatGPT to give you some suggestions. You've got a bunch of things in your refrigerator. What should you make for dinner tonight? Use a generative AI opportunity to figure out something interesting. And then we're looking at ways, in the business, we're looking really broadly, not sort of like what are the cool things that everybody's doing right now, but how do we want AI to be a part of what we're doing long term? But definitely opportunities for us to think about what are the high value things that we want to make sure we continue to do high touch with people. And then what are some of the other ways that people want to interact with a technology rather than a person that enables our teams to do the really interesting work and get people information into their hands as quickly as we can.
Well, that's a wonderful way to start our conversation because there's so many things I want to ask you about. But before I do that, I really wanted to get to learn a little bit more about your experience in the space. Where are you currently, and what's really exciting you with the HR, or rather we call it people function now. So with the HR operations, people operation or
Yeah.
product side of things.
Sure. So I'm currently the CHRO of a company called Learn Behavioral. We do autism services across 26 states. We've got 6,500 employees working diligently every day to change lives of children and their families. And so what's exciting for me about people operations is more and more in the past 2 years, I think there's been a real sense of how human resources and the people function is a real driver for the business. One of my pet peeves is when people in the function say the business, as if we're not part of it, as if we're not, an important, integral part of making sure that the organization's working every day. So that's what I'm doing right now. And when I think about, this time as a function, we're really increasing the expectations of us as business leaders. And all those things that we can drive. And so it's really exciting. And at Learn, I'm finding a wonderful, welcoming place in order to do those things and a group that really understands the value of what we're bringing to the table.
Wonderful. Well, you've talked briefly about how you are incorporating some of the AI and automation into your current HR department and its functions. But can you tell us a little bit about how you're keeping the human touch in the midst of all this technological revolution that's happening around us in the world of work?
Sure. And it's so critical to keep the human element to it for a number of reasons. First of all, we're people and company culture is going to continue to be incredibly important. And that comes from behaviors. I always say that a company culture is an outward behavioral expression of a shared set of values. And you can do only so much of that with technology. But even as we think about how do we incorporate technology, that comes from understanding who are our employees and the different kinds of employees, different personas our employees have. How do they want to interact? Where are the moments where they actually want to interact with technology? And how do we make that easy? And where are the places where it's really important to sit down and have a conversation? So even as we begin to think about bringing in, and we're at the very beginning of our journey at Learn when it comes to automation and AI and the people function, But as we're having those conversations, it's all focused on what's the employee experience going to be, and where are the places where technology can enhance that experience, and where are the places where it really has to be a person. And if you can keep that in balance, and if you think about everything that you're doing, every process, every opportunity from the employee's point of view, then I think we're going to be in great shape. If you flip that and you think only about how do I optimize, how am I the most efficient, how's the process going to work for us as the department, you're going to lose the view of how does this feel to the employee. And I think that's where this can go sideways. So we're really keeping the employee experience at the center of what we're doing.
Wonderful. You spoke a little bit about the use cases that all of this new technology can be used towards. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about a specific use case that you found this to be especially efficient and increase in productivity is something that you're seeing as you're incorporating it into your work?
Sure. And as I said, we're at the beginning of that. So we haven't implemented a lot yet. One of the things that we're exploring, though, is in the talent acquisition function, we're exploring enabling candidates to self-schedule their interview. So we're asking ourselves, does somebody actually have to call you and say, we'd love to have you come into the organization for a conversation. We think you'd be great for this position. Let's spend some time looking at our shared calendars. Well, that's not necessarily the conversation that people even want to have. Giving them the convenience of click here, schedule when it's convenient for you. They can take themselves through that process. That's a great place where I can both get efficiency and where most people actually would prefer to be dealing with technology as opposed to not dealing with technology. Another place that we're spending a lot of time asking ourselves and looking at what are the opportunities are, we, like many places, we have an HR help desk where when people need basic information or just need to know where to get started, they're submitting a help desk ticket. And we're looking at, are there places in which we can use technology to get them faster to the answer, so they're not waiting for somebody to log onto the system, pick up the ticket, answer the question. But can we use generative AI to get them part of the way there, and ways in which it can be smart enough then to route them and realize, okay, I can't get you all the way here. Let me connect you with a person and keep that ticket updated so you don't have to have the experience of, okay, I just went through all these steps. But again, thinking about the employee experience, making sure that in an opportunity like that, that the employee has the chance to say, no, actually, I need a person. And they can exit it as well. So those, I would say, are the two big use cases that we're looking at right now.
That really sounds very, very fun and challenging at the same time. We do a little bit
Yeah.
of work on in the second use case that you mentioned at HR Geckos, and the employee experience is front and center in the midst of all this technological revolution, right? And it's so difficult as well as so energizing to make all of this work in tandem, like
Yeah.
pieces of a Lego puzzle, or even a robotic combination with a human, and like a championship fight where there's a human and a automated element to it. um
Yep.
so, a lot of the big tech CEOs, including NVIDIA's CEO, predicted that AI will be smarter than humans in 5 years, before 2030. So, I'm asking you to look in your crystal ball and tell me what you foresee for HR in 2024 and beyond, so that, we are better prepared for what's coming our way.
Mhm. I both love and I'm terrified by this question. Maybe it's I'm a sci-fi fan, and I perhaps have seen too many dystopian movies about what happens when technology gets as smart as we are. Um, but at the same time, it's really exciting because when I think about how we learn as human beings, the most wonderful learning opportunities are when you are challenged by someone, and maybe it's going to be something that gets you to think in a different way or is smarter than you are. Think of everyone you've ever learned from. They knew more about a specific topic than you knew about. So I think, as I said a little while ago, I think it's important for us as we're building today to think about where do we want to be a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. Hard to do because the technology is changing so incredibly rapidly. Um, but thinking about it in a broad kind of way of what's the work going to look like? What are the skills that we're going to need? So I think HR organizations, people organizations, and companies need to be thinking more about a skills-based approach to talent because as this evolves, that's going to be where the focus goes. You're, looking at your resume and truly understanding what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you've developed, and how do we then take those and translate them? And also, how are we investing in our employees, not only from a skills-based standpoint, but in getting them to think about being curious and asking questions and taking risks, getting those essential behaviors as values in the company. Because as these opportunities and as the technology gets smarter, you really want people who are embracing it. Um, and then the last thing I would say, all of this is we got to be having really critical, ethical conversations. How are we using the technology? Are we building bias into systems? And we all have unconscious bias. And so you really have to be able to test against that. Where are the ethical and moral lines of how we're going to use this technology when we have people's livelihoods in our hands and their futures when it comes to how we're going to develop them? So I think that's all the things, tall order for what we should be thinking about right now. But opportunities like this evolving technology call for, big dreams.
Absolutely. And some of these challenges have always existed in our line of work. It's like we're always thinking about
So
how
true.
do we help the humans in our workforce do better, be better, and help the business by being better and being a better workplace. So uh, I still think there are so many opportunities given what we have coming out of the woodwork at us. Uh, and definitely so many more challenges that's coming with all of that new fangled tech that's coming at us. So
Absolutely.
so my question to you is again a fantastical kind of question. What are you most worried about this year for HR and in general? And if you had a magic wand, what would be your ideal solution to eliminate this problem?
That's a great question. What I'm most worried about is probably that if we don't take a leadership role in how this evolves, we're going to get left behind. If we're not doing it, it's going to happen to us. And making sure that we have people in the right developmental opportunities, in the right communities, and having conversations in order for us to be a big part of the conversation of how this is going to be. So it's both the exciting thing and the scary thing for me when it comes to what all this technology can do for us. If I could wave a magic wand, I would probably instill in, I'm trying to do this in my team, so I would instill this in the profession. As I mentioned before, this just idea of curiosity, that almost going back to being a kid and being willing to play with what's in front of us so we can understand what it is and embrace the wonder and excitement of this moment. Because from that, I think we're going to get a lot of innovation and having folks thinking more broadly. Don't just think about the function, think about all the ways that this can interact in the business, the whole ecosystem that we have from a technology. If you can instill that in folks, I just think there's going to be really amazing things that we're going to be able to do.
Absolutely. And I take advice from my little nephews all the time who are in the throw of things, right? They know all the new tech out there and how they're using it to do homework, to play a game with friends, or even to connect with new friends. And so different from how we were raised and how, we went about doing all of this.
Yes,
That's how the new world of work is going to be because they are the workforce of the future, and we have to prepare for this. It's definitely different and definitely a big change for folks like us. But at the same time, for For my nephews, it's an exciting time. All this new tech, they love it. It's just, wonderful. It lets them do really super fantastical things that they wouldn't have dreamt of, or I
Yep.
wouldn't have dreamt of when I was their age. So, what's one piece of advice, Maggie, that you have for HR professionals who are looking to adopt or adapt to new technology?
Push past the I don't know how to get started. Don't worry about how to get started. Just get started. There's a lot of great information out there. There are wonderful communities that you can join. Um, so embrace those opportunities and start with really understanding not just the HR technology or how this is going to impact our function. Get started with just understanding what these things are capable of doing. Um, don't let the fear of it get in your way. I started just by playing around with different large learning models, large language models, and asking questions. Like I said before, I'm going on vacation. If you were going this place for 5 days, how would you go? You feed it an email and say, make this sound nicer or make this sound clearer. And you'll be amazed at how comfortable and fluent you can become really quickly. So just get going and do it.
Absolutely. It's amazing how quickly you can really churn out content and refine it as well. And it helps you refine it. And I see that a lot in our marketing side of things here at HR Gecko. So it's really a good way to start learning and experimenting in that sandbox before we actually put it to use for other more high value tasks. So thank you for that. So that brings us to our question connection round where we ask you a question and you respond in rapid fire fashion. Ready?
Okay.
So, who's one person, Maggie, that you've gained in your network in the HR tech space that you would recommend we all connect with and learn from? I know it's difficult, one person.
Well, can I do a community?
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I connected with the People Chat GPT Slack group. And there's such a wealth of knowledge in that group. So I can't pick one person because so many people there are incredibly generous. So I would start looking at what they're doing.
Wonderful. And if you share a link, I will put that in the show notes for everyone else to access.
Be
Great.
happy to.
Okay. If you have a favorite HR podcast or an HR technology book, would you like to share that as well?
Absolutely. My favorite HR podcast right now is I Hate It Here. First of all, I was drawn to the title, which I just thought was very funny and exciting. And I listened to, particularly, there was a pay transparency episode recently that was terrific. But I love every episode of that podcast. I'd highly recommend it.
Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes. We are curating an HR playlist. So while we curate this, we're asking all our podcast guests to chime in and add a song to the list. What song would you like to add?
That is so much fun. I have music playing all the time in my house. Um, so I've got a bit of a throwback idea for this one. Lisa Loeb had a song called I Do, and it was popular when I won't say how old I was, but I was much younger than I am now. And I love it because the song is actually, I think, about a bad relationship. But I've made it my imposter syndrome anthem because there's a couple lines in the song where she talks about, feeling doubt and, you're the person who instills this in me. And then there's this one moment where she says, I'm starting to ignore you. And it's this, for me, it's this incredibly empowering anti-imposter syndrome song. And I'd love to hear other people embrace it for that use.
Love it. We'll add it to our Spotify HR playlist that we call Gecko's Grooves. So lovely addition. Thank you. There's a lot of e-learning going on right now because, they're all stuck in front of computers a lot these days, at least in the HR people ops area. Would you recommend a LinkedIn Learning or an e-learning webinar that would be good for HR technology?
I would. So there is a YouTube video that I will share a link for you that you can put in the show notes, where somebody reviewed a course that was it's like a 4-day course around just basic understanding of AI and LLM. And it's 10 minutes. And I shared it with my entire team. I was like, this is the best primer that I've seen out there so far. So it's just a really great one.
Great. And last but not the least, you enjoy giving back to the community in general. How do you specifically give back to the HR community?
I love this question too. I'm a big believer in pay it forward. There were so many people who've been generous with their time and their wisdom and their advocacy for me in my career. So I try to be as active in different HR communities as I can be. Particularly, I hold time on my calendar every week. I call it pay it forward time, where folks who are earlier in their careers than I am can just get 30 minutes and I'm happy to talk through career questions that you have, specific HR questions that you have, just as a way to, connect and share things back. And then in the communities I'm in, I try to do the best I can when it comes to answering questions or connecting other people. I try to turn networking into my superpower. So I love connecting great people with each other.
Wonderful. So you are not coming to any of the conferences that I'm attending, but I'm looking forward to meeting you because you're local to me in the DMV. So I
Yeah,
pick you up on that 30 minutes. Definitely.
love to do it. Let's get it booked. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for being with us today. Our HRBytes community is entirely grateful to learn from you, and thank you for sharing all these insights. If our community would like to get in touch with you, Maggie, what's the best way to reach you?
LinkedIn is always the best way to find me. I'm there every day. I try to interact with other people's posts. I don't post this constantly, but I am on there. So reach out. And I'm so grateful that you had me on today. I've so much enjoyed our conversation, and I'm glad you and I have connected.
Wonderful. Thank you again for being here, and I will see you around.
See you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Listen on your favorite podcast channels and watch us on YouTube. Follow us on social. We are on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Join our budding community on LinkedIn and Facebook. Ask, answer,